Okay, so this one is going to be about what I'm going to call the way usually players will always kind of jockey for any little advantage they can, any little minor bonus they can do, like especially if it's not part of the normal rules. So I'm going to bring up two situations. One of the players in question, the first one, is basically just a player, and then the second situation is both the DM in the first situation and the player in the second situation. So first, there's this in the most recent Ugliest Man Alive. There was this. We had this little fight with some gnolls, and the paladin Mildred Goblin is finally starting to use a little bit of their magic, and they're using Find Steed. So they've got a little mount, and they're trying to use that. And they want to, essentially, cavalry style, barrel into several targets all at once in an attempt to knock everybody over and attack everybody all at once. Now, per the normal rules of 5e, one of the main things a lot of people don't realize is that all the AC, movement, everything, those are all heavy abstractions. Like, when you run into a bunch of targets, if you're attacking multiple targets, that's all of your, if you have two attacks, yeah, you can then attack multiple targets in that 6 seconds, in that one turn. But you can't just barrel into a bunch of targets just because, like, oh, I'm a heavy thing and I have these abilities, or I have these physical qualities, so I should be able to just barrel into everything. Like, no, that's not how that works. That's not how the game system works. And if you want a game system that is like all on the fly all the time, sure, I guess, go play a different system. Play something like I think GURPS kind of works that way, but it requires you to constantly, every single turn, like, okay, I'm going to do this, and there's all these rules for you to adjudicate a bunch of different things and all these varying properties, but that's not something you necessarily want all the time. And in particular, when his mount already has a charge ability, where if you move a certain amount of feet in a straight line before attacking a target, then you can do extra damage and try to knock a target prone. And that's cool, but also by the normal mount rules, your mount doesn't get an attack. So there's that. We're already, like, the DM is already giving an allowance for that. But, it's just often a player is going to look for these types of advantages. They want to do extra stuff. Whereas if you're just going to use the normal rules in this case, like, okay, I barrel into this target, land both attacks in the first guy. You can flavor just your normal stuff however you want. And that's where the creativity really kind of has to apply in a system like 5e. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, where the rules are always very consistent and they're always going to work the same way. But you can flavor shit however the fuck you want. Who cares? Like, I'm going to pull out, I hit this guy with a bag of cheese. It's actually a Warhammer, but it's a bag of cheese. That's my weapon. Whatever. Who cares? A good DM will be able to, for the most part, not exactly shut that down, but still give the player kind of what they want, while not, like, completely breaking the system and letting you do all sorts of nonsense on the fly for no reason. Just because, like, oh, I'm on a horse. Like, no. That's not how that works. The rules work a certain way because. And so, in this next situation, the player that was the person that was the DM in this first situation is now a player. And in this situation, I'm the other player, or one of the other players, and we're kind of sneaking up on a bunch of hags. We're in the room, the hags aren't hostile yet, and this player, who's playing a Hexblade Warlock, is invisible and kind of sneaking up on one of the hags and knows how hags work. So from their invisible position, they take their attack, and they specifically describe it as like, I want to impale the hag through the chest with my sword while invisible. Okay. And per the rules, you're invisible, you get advantage on the attack, they do a bunch of damage. And afterwards, I was talking to the player, after the whole session, it's just me and this other player. And we're kind of discussing it, and they expressed some remorse, some, I guess, dissatisfaction with like, man, I didn't get like any extra damage or any extra anything from that attack. Well, again, per the normal rules, you get advantage from being invisible, and damage in 5e, like the thing that you do, like your accuracy, your ability to strike vital points and deal maximum damage, that's abstracted in both your hit chance and your and the damage you do. Again, abstractions. But in particular, it's, like being stronger isn't necessarily going to make you more accurate with a sword, for example. But the blows you do land are going to be more dangerous. So you can also abstract that as narratively landing blows more often, especially because HP in 5e is also an abstraction. It's not meat points. It's not like you have to carve off this much meat from your opponent to kill them. Like, no, it's HP is a combination of like stamina, heroic luck, or in some cases villainous luck. Like, it's a lot of different things molded together. As such, like, the first hit on a target that's full HP, you're not necessarily going to slash into their belly. You might just nick them slightly, like just enough to draw a little bit of blood. But they're a heavily armored target, and you did effectively like a fifth of their life in one attack. That's a lot of damage. But because they're at like the tip top of their stamina and luck, not a whole lot happened. Their luck's not going to hold for the next time a strike like that occurs. That's kind of the idea. Now, if a DM in that kind of situation were to rule like, okay, yeah, you're attacking from an invisible position and you're attacking in this specific way, yeah, roll me some extra whatever. But usually those rules have to be a little codified, but maybe sometimes come up with it on the fly, especially if the DM thinks that it's a really cool solution or a really cool ambush situation. But usually it's more consistent to stick to the rules. And consistency is really what the rules are about. Because one of the main things about rules is that as long as you know them and you stick to them most of the time, that gives you a better basis, a better understanding for when it's appropriate to break them and when it's appropriate to give players some sort of strategic bonuses and advantages and like extra damage. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. And maybe you don't always get it 100% right. Like, you're not some perfect DMing machine that can factor all the nuances and everything in to go, okay, yeah, you should get a 23% attack bonus here, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. And also, it's, most TTRPGs, 5e especially, like even most of them are still about telling a story anyway. And you don't necessarily need all these big attack bonuses. But, of course, I say that now as the person making videos. But as a player, when I'm playing, I would definitely argue that, no, give me +6s, please. So, I'm a little hypocritical there, but... And this particular example, I think, shows the dichotomy, the different mindsets. When you're a DM, you want to stick to the rules. You want to, okay, no, it's going to happen this way for this reason. This is what the rules say. Whereas when you're a player, you're like, yeah, big numbers, yeah. Caveman brain go bonk. So, there's factors there. And that's pretty much it.